Well, Thanksgiving is over. Everybody's eaten. They made pigs out of themselves, which is not fair to pigs, but it's a whole different issue. And Francois is asleep, so of course the lights are all turned down so that he's not disturbed. And so, as usual, instead of just going to bed, having a hot toddy or something normal, I'm thinking about things, and I've been thinking a lot about this immigration issue, and it's a long and complicated issue, and I don't want to go on and on and on and on and on. I can make many of these little videos. They don't have to be long and involved, but there's one thing I do want to point out, because many people don't understand this. The problem we had when Biden was president and all these people were flooding across the border was that they were not sneaking in here, swimming across the Rio Grande as wetbacks. They were coming across, the vast majority of them, to seek asylum. Now, the asylum law statutes are not known by many people, including, frankly, most people in Congress. They're not complicated. They're based on the asylum, whatever it was called. It was done by the United Nations and resolution. So the asylum resolution by the United Nations was passed after World War II and adopted in whole or in part by virtually everybody in the Western world. What's not in the asylum resolution of the United Nations is where a person has to go to seek asylum. That's in the U.S. laws. So our statutes provide that not only can you come into the United States to seek asylum, but you must. Think about that. Asylum is something that when you come in, you make a legal claim. Say, I have a right to be here. I've been persecuted in my home country. You cannot make that claim outside of the United States. So the way the statute is written is people seeking asylum have to come across the border. And what happens is they get across the border. They're subjected to an initial examination, which is fairly straightforward and simple. They pass that. This is somebody who should never have been allowed across the border. Listen to him. What are you crying about? Come over here. I'm busy talking to the folks about asylum, which if it wasn't for asylum, you wouldn't have gotten here from France. You know that. So stop crying for just a minute, okay? Let me finish, okay? I love this dog, but he's French. Say what I mean? Stop speaking French. You know that these people don't understand French, and particularly not your French. I'm sorry about that, folks. He's here. What am I going to do? I can't lock him out because he'll bark. So I wouldn't lock him out anyway. So, asylum, they come here, they pass it. I'll speak fast. Maybe I can get past his whining. And then they are led into the country where they stay, and they're given a hearing date, usually years in the future. So they come in, and they're here for years. And the coyotes who bring them in, they tell them that. We'll get you in, you'll seek asylum, and then you'll be able to disappear in the United States. Or not disappear, they know where they are. But you'll have to stay there. You can stay there for years until your hearing. And so, surprisingly, people took advantage of that. And they came across by the millions, and it was wrong. So, what the present administration has done to stop the flow of people coming across the border, and they have stopped it, is they've stopped the processing of the initial application. So essentially, they have shut down the ability of people to come here and seek asylum. That's a violation of our laws. And it's a violation of our principles. We want people who legitimately have asylum claims to be able to seek asylum in this country. It's kind of part of what makes us America. So, to me, the solution, and I don't know why nobody is talking about it, isn't to just shut down asylum. It's also not to just let everybody come in and seek asylum. It's to change the law that says you have to be in the United States first. Let me repeat that. The solution to the asylum problem is not to shut down asylum applications, but to change the law so that the asylum applications do not have to be presented in the United States. In fact, it should be just the opposite. They should have to seek those just like they do visas. at the American embassy in their country, or if they can't because of the reason they're seeking asylum, a close country nearby, to go to the United States Embassy, present their asylum application, get a hearing date, and then come to the United States for their hearing. Now, you know what's going to happen. If they do that, a whole bunch of people are not going to file for asylum because they're not legitimately seeking asylum. They're just using that as an excuse to sneak into the country, or get into the country, not sneaking, coming right into the country boldly, and then figure they can stay here for a number of years. And if they have to go back eventually, well, so what? They've already made money. They have families. They've maybe gotten married, all kinds of things. So that, to me, that's not a difficult problem. It can be solved properly. I don't think it's being solved properly now, because shutting down the whole asylum system is not the proper way to go, in my opinion. So if I get into Congress, one of the first things I'm going to do is introduce legislation to change the asylum law in that very simple regard. So that's it. You're going to hear from me for tonight. And he's actually, you know what? He's asleep already. Man, you know who he reminds me of? This ability to just go to sleep in a split second? Yeah, me when I was in law school. Goodbye.